Rise and shine on Australia's Vision Christian Radio.
And on the line, we've got Brett and Kate Ryan from Focus on the Family. I always love having a chat with you both. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
So good to see you both again, and been obviously keeping very busy, but we want to talk today about trust. What have you got to share with us?
Well, recently I had an opportunity to speak to a large church, to the parents of the youth, about technology. And part of the thing, everyone can say, we can turn the technology off and put filters on. But it was actually number one issue that I found in my research was to build trust, that when you say no and telling your kids no for a reason is that they trust you. And then it started this ball rolling about how do we build trust? How do we build trust with our kids? How do we build trust with our husband and wife relationship, with those around us? And so that's where the basis is of this idea of building trust, because we also know that once trust has been earned, it can be easily damaged.
That's right. Well, trust is something that, it certainly doesn't get built overnight, but it can be destroyed in an instant. So what are some ways that we can ensure that we are building trust and not pulling it away?
Well, number one is we need to be transparent. The minute we start hiding things or even just gossip is just one of the worst things. I think Christians can be the worst at this, where somebody tells them something and then you tell somebody with the idea of we should pray for them.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
It's a common line, isn't it?
This. Often I will say to people who say those kinds of things, I said, did you ask the person's permission to get us both praying? Because it damages trust. And we think if we share information, we're going to be part of the audience and we're in the know. But what it does is it can turn very quickly for friendships and other, even acquaintances that might have shared something. It can turn around and they would then be talking about us and going, you don't tell them anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Reputation. So you've got to be a person of integrity and be a person of your word and be authentic and real, and that will actually build the trust. And that's same with all types of relationships, as I said, but especially when you're with your kids, for example, is being fully present, fully available. You can be there physically, but not there relationally. And all of those little building blocks of being there fully present, emotionally, relationally, actively listening, and I'm a work in progress when it comes to that. Kate will talk about that for another time. Be a really good listener, but you're being on their team, and when you do all those things, you're building all these building blocks of trust. So when you have to put on the parent hat and you have to say something, they're going to say, well, they have got my best interest in hand, and I do trust them, so they must have something that is reasonable. I may not like it, but I trust them. And that's the type of relationship that can actually build upon when you have to talk about the big and serious and the uncomfortable conversations, that they say, hey, mum and dad, they've got my back. And that's a good place to be.
And I guess that's where parents have got to walk the talk. So if they're saying about technology, that that's initially what Brett mentioned, they're talking about technology, they've got to live the same rules. If they're saying, I don't want you on technology looking at Facebook, endlessly, and they're sitting there scrolling, trust is broken then. They go, well, they're telling me one thing, but they're not doing it themselves, so why would I listen?
Yeah, kid will smell a hypocrite a mile away.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah, so true.
So good.
I think the important thing is too that obviously trust needs to be built before those critical times, because you were saying about how, when those big moments where you say, hey, this is what I need, and then if it's a parent-child relationship, they trust you, but you've got to be building that trust well in advance. It's not, you don't sort of start to build trust the day that you need, in that critical moment.
Yeah.
And it's once trust is broken, as we were saying, in an instant it can be broken. We're then on the journey of trying to rebuild, and rebuilding takes time. You can't get frustrated and say, well, I've been doing that for 2 days now.
Yeah.
It's consistent behaviour and a repentant heart. I think all of us have to be humbled in that way and say, we broke trust. If you could please forgive me. And then behaviours need to change. And so that's not a quick thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, because that was the next question was, okay, you feel like perhaps you have lost trust, or there's been a moment in any relationship really, and it could be with a parent, it could be with kids, even in a workplace situation, is how to regain, how to rebuild. And it probably does start by being really honest and saying and having a conversation. Is there any other tools that you can think of that help regain and rebuild that trust if we feel like it's been lost?
Kate's actually identified it takes time. So long-term sustainable change, but also acknowledging that you've broken trust, and that you have to own that rather than be dismissive of that. And then even ask the question, what can I do to build that trust? And empower the person to have some input on what that looks like. Because you might already think, well, I said I'm sorry, and I know that I've done that in the past, and continue to do it. You want to change, not just for the moment. You want to change for the long term. And when we do that, that actually is again starting the building blocks of building the trust up again.
And I think the key is not to diminish what they just did. Often we go, oh, well, I just did this, and diminish that for the other person. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because trust is a huge thing. If you say to a child, you've lost my trust, oh, it's devastating.
Yeah.
It's devastating to them. But I think the important thing is you must, once they've apologised and they start making changes, you have to forgive them. God calls us. He doesn't give us a choice. He says, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who trespass against us. It's a command.
Yeah.
And so if they have apologised and asked for forgiveness, we do need to forgive, but the behaviours need to follow. So we don't hold them in the place. We allow them to, make recompense or, change their ways. But at the same time, we're not to hold them in the error that they made. Because if we did that, boy, if God did that to us, my goodness, we'd be in a bad place.
And all of this is, I use the word building blocks as often, but it's also the building blocks with our faith in God. Trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean on our own understanding. We're role modeling that to our kids. We're doing it to our spouse. We have to build that trust, but then we lean into God to trust Him with our circumstances, Him with our current situation, Him with our challenges, and all of that is that's the type of relationship we want.
Yeah, and I guess the great thing is that God's perfectly trustworthy, isn't He? So He's built trust because He's faithful and He's true and He's trustworthy. So that I guess it makes it easier, but it's still something that we have to work through in that level of learning to trust God as well. So, look, some great things here that you've raised today, and something that we can definitely take away and chew on and start to apply to our lives as well in a whole lot of different areas in this whole area of trust. So, thanks so much for your time, guys. We love what you do. Of course, families.org.au is the place to go if you want to get some more resources and tools from the team at Focus on the Family. And we look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
And if you've got any of your listeners or know people in the Mount Gambier area, we're actually going to Mount Gambier and hosting a marriage event there on the end of September. So keep that in mind and let them know. And I think you can contact Mount Gambier Baptist Church.
Okay, I'll check that one out. I guess the details are on your website for that as well?
No, we're all keeping it on the Mount Gambier website. Don't want to complicate things.
Okay, so Mount Gambier Baptist Church if you want to find out more about that. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.